because people are busy and tired of social media, there's a lot of noise, right? There's a lot of distraction. I would say with your messaging and with your communication, don't focus on attention. Don't focus on getting people's attention anymore. I think instead of focusing on attention, you focus on being unforgettable.
Mm.
And that is what the framework that I mentioned earlier is all geared to like wrapping story into it's like a deeper uh, like a is going deeper into what you want to say, what you want to communicate, the experience you want to give, and connecting with on a deeper level.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Flow Over Fear podcast, where it is our mission to help you to rise above fear and realize your ultimate potential in leadership and life. I'm your host, Adam Hill, and it is my goal to share with you the human side of high performance. My guests share their experience with fear, anxiety, struggle, challenge, and most importantly, despite all of it, how they rose above it to achieve incredible results. So, if you're ready to rise up, let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome to Flow Over Fear. Thank you for being here. Thanks for joining us today. I have a great guest. His name is Phil Lashley, and he is a highly sought after motion designer renowned for transforming ideas into unforgettable visuals. With 15 plus years in the motion design industry, he has worked with multiple award-winning post-production studios in Hollywood responsible for marketing feature films such as Pirates of the Caribbean, Shrek, and multiple Super Bowl commercials. And we know those are the most popular things on the day of the Super Bowl, right? As well as the Drew Barrymore show for CBS. Phil has had the privilege of working with Grammy winner Chandler Moore, and his creative work has been featured for best-selling book launches, including those of Max Lucado, Nora Jones, and Timothy Keller for Zondervan. As an experienced visual storyteller, Phil uses his signature framework to help the ultra-busy thought leaders turn their ideas in videos into visuals that stand out and are unforgettable. Thanks for joining us, Phil. I'm so glad you're
Oh
here.
my gosh, just listening to that, I was like, oh man, why did I
Yeah,
write?
it's no, there's a lot of power in that because, when we hear ourselves and what we've actually done, you've accomplished a lot of things. I mean, being in Hollywood and things like that. And one of the,
Yeah.
one of the things that's really cool about you is that you've made a career out of something that many of us adults seem to forget a lot about, which is our imaginations, right? I
Yes.
mean, so so can you kind of share a little bit about how imagination has shaped your life, like how it's become so important and how it's become a career for you?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I can take you back from as far as I remember. I was born and raised most of my life in Barbados. And I remember growing up without television. We got TV late, me and my three brothers.
Mhm.
So that's step one. Like we had no choice but to use our imagination. Um, we weren't allowed. Well, at the time, I used to think our parents were poor, which they were not. They were just very selective, typical middle class family. And but we have a few Lego sets, a few little Hot Wheels, um, just the bare minimum. Plastic soldiers, remember those green soldiers?
Oh yeah.
And we would create different worlds with these things, and it never got bored. If we got bored on the inside, we took these things on the outside and created even. It was just limitless. So that led me to, I guess, being, I guess, self-aware at the time at a young age. I was always interested in commercials when we got television. How do people think about commercials? And at the time, it was Seven Up. I'm not sure if your viewers might remember this, but there was this hand-drawn Fido Dido character with the Seven Up bottle, and that just blew my mind. They were mixing worlds, real life footage with hand-drawn figures, and that took me down
Mhm.
a rabbit hole of just experimenting with flip books, flipping the pages and seeing the sequence flying by, and it kind of mushroomed to a point where during college in Barbados, I was introduced to, I got an invitation to a career fair, and the Art Institute from Miami was there. And the only thing I remembered, Adam, was this signage that said, "Hey, if you're interested in knowing how to make commercials, the behind the scenes, the magic, we got a course for you." And that was it. I drank the whole Kool-Aid bottle. It was just what I needed to hear. Of course, that was marketing at its finest. So fast forward, I got the opportunity to attend school in Miami, art school. Not sure, not certain which semester was going to be my last because my parents were funding this from no scholarships, no grants or anything like that. And what that did was to force me to treat each semester like if it was my last. So with that came this muscle of hustling to do internships when they were offered, talking to my instructors who were actually working in the field in the movie making business. And it just grew deeper and wider from there. This is a snapshot shot of how it started, but I would say I guess I always was that curious guy.
hmm
Yeah.
So curiosity. I mean, I know that's for a lot of people that's a superpower. Like you get curious enough, you find your passion. So you were curious, you were creative. How did those two qualities play together in your life? Like to be curious and creative. Did it kind of pave a way for success in what you're doing now?
Absolutely. I think curiosity, I'm not sure if this is unique to just a few people, to be honest.
hmm
I think you're naturally interested in something, right? Mine just happened to be a lot on the development of videos and good advertising and just the psychology behind that. And as far as creativity, definitely I believe for sure is not reserved for creative agencies and these houses that do studio work. Creative directors is something that is, I think, ingrained in us and is for everyone with ideas and messages to be communicated. But I
hmm
think if you go by Steve Jobs' definition of creativity, it was like as simple as just thinking differently, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think everybody, regardless of your career path, your industry, you're faced with challenges every day, and you have to think creatively, think differently, for almost like multiple times a day, right?
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so it's not limited to just, oh, just a few people are creative. I think if we believe that we already have creativity in us, we begin to look at problems differently.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So you think everybody has a level of creativity within
Oh,
them that, yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
And
Do
if
you
and
think
if you
we're,
don't believe me, just think a few years ago when everything was on lockdown. I mean, people got creative with their workouts, their lifestyle. Everything was just oozing out. Like on social media, you could see it, all the challenges and stuff.
hmm.
Stay-at-home moms, they're forced to be creative every week.
That's such a good
Homeschooling.
point.
Yeah.
That's such a great point. I mean, when it's forced upon us, I mean, we had that level of creativity, and I never thought of it that way. As far as what happened within that period of time where COVID came about was we were forced into be more creative, finding creative solutions, and we did. So that's an
Yep.
amazing that it feels like a lot of people have this untapped power to be creative.
Yeah.
And how do you feel like? Do you feel like what do you feel like creativity's relationship with fear is? I know that's kind of an odd question to ask, but
Yeah.
is there a relationship there? Because I have this theory that when we're more creative, when we're able to think more creatively, we're able to kind of rise above anxiety or fear in a lot of ways.
hmm
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think there's okay, so you could be creative, you have a problem, you have a solution, or you're wondering how to solve this problem.
hmm
I think there are two steps to it. There's one, like in your head, you're wrestling with these thoughts. And I don't think the fear in that is very high because we're not ashamed of what it looks or feels or smells like, what it sounds like. But from the moment you decide to express what you're thinking, then becomes this whole state of almost embarrassment or risk. You don't want to look stupid. You want to always look.
Sure.
You know, so all these things we put on ourselves when it comes to expressing creativity, I think there's a difference there. Um, yeah,
So
but
expressing creativity creates the fear, really. Then that's
I
really
I
see
really
that.
believe that. Yeah, yeah.
Huh.
And some people let it cripple them, and others don't. And I think, like the famous saying with an artist, the blank canvas is the most, I guess, intimidating thing. They're having thoughts. The mind is really going a million miles per hour, and it's only when that artist, even an experienced artist in their sketching, when they have the moment to put that pencil or charcoal or paint to the canvas, then it becomes less fearful, and as it evolves into something decent, and you realize what you don't like, you get things out, and then it just evolves into something beautiful. But yeah, I think every time there's a attempt to express creativity, there's always that fear. I think some people get good at handling it and managing it, but I think it's always there.
That's a really neat perspective on that, because it sounds like that barrier of fear is not necessarily in our imagination or maybe our
Hmm.
ability to generate ideas, but to express them. That's where that brick wall is like once you put pen to paper, or once you verbalize it,
Yeah.
or once that,
Or
and
typing in the case of a
yeah,
writer, when they
sure.
start, it gets easier and you get this ritual and maybe a daily habit of doing it. And it seemingly gets easier.
Hmm. The more you
Yeah.
do it, so it's like a muscle that you have to work out. Is that,
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's
So,
this there's
so
this
do,
little Oh, I'm sorry, go
oh, go
ahead.
ahead.
I
No,
was gonna say
please.
there's this little trick that I do with myself when I go run, because I run on mornings now. I'm trying to train for a longer, like a 10K or something, but I'm trying to do one 5K per week. And in my neighborhood where I am right now, I try to run a different path every day, right? And it may sound, Phil, where do you live? But it may be as simple as just running circles around a parking lot one day to make the 5K, or you go through this trail, just reverse the direction the next day. And I think that keeps me, I guess, I don't know, it seems to have a direct correlation to how I approach work,
Hmm.
um, or even your furniture in your office. Like every time you change up the desk, the angle of the desk, it sends something to your brain. Okay, you're trying to get used to this. Oh, this is going to work. I'm going to make this work. There's something there. And I'm not a
Yeah.
scientist, so I can't really tell you the connection, but there's something about embracing change that is directly linked to this muscle of creativity that is always going.
Yeah. Well, there's power to that, because even if it's not scientific, if it affects our minds in such a way that it kind of puts us
Hmm.
into a flow state, and it sounds like
Hmm.
that's what you're getting at, is once if you arrange your furniture, or you get out and you run, or you do the right things to put yourself in that state that puts you best into flow,
Yeah.
how whatever that is for you, or whatever that is for any person, that puts them in that ability, that there's power in that. And I can relate, because I mean, when I was cycling a lot more, if I put new wheels on my bike, like if I put a new set of wheels on my bike,
Hmm. Hmm.
chances are scientifically it would improve my speed by about, a millisecond.
Yes.
But it
Yes.
felt so much more
Yes.
powerful. The feeling was better. So I mean, but that feeling translated into better results. So it
Yeah.
sounds like
Yeah.
that's kind of what happens in the creativity
Absolutely.
world too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. A
Huh.
new pair of shoes, man, you feel like you begin to believe you're this athlete.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing there is buy the new shoes, buy the new wheels, no, rearrange the furniture. Yeah, do everything you need to do. That makes sense. So that it sounds like there's ways in which we can tap into our imagination more
Oh,
effectively.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
What other pieces of advice would you have to help people to tap into their imagination and kind of bring that creativity forward?
I lately started doing this. I would say is schedule it.
Schedule it.
Schedule.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of made it a part of my morning routine now, where after quiet time, I pray, time for praying, time for listening, just some silence, and then there's a 10-minute block for I have it on my calendar, imagining,
Mm.
and it's like the permission that we I think we lost when we were younger. Um, yeah, whether it's
Hmm.
imagining how the podcast or how how you're going to show up today, from smaller things like that to just going crazy, like, man, what if I could really fly? Where would I go? Like the things
Yeah.
that we are afraid to say out loud. I'm making time for that now, and I think it's fun. It is fun.
Yeah. So, and I know a lot of us have a mental block on that too, like where we say, okay, I'm
Hmm.
going to make some time for imagining, but
Yeah.
a lot of times that imagination, it's like, okay, well, where am I going to go? And
Hmm.
and we get in those questions. Is there anything that like helps prompt you into getting more imaginative or anything like that, mindset kind of stuff?
Yeah, I actually started writing some. Hopefully it becomes a ebook or something, but um, I'll share I'll share a few. Like for example, and I learned this purely by accident when I was younger. My mom used to cut my hair, and we used to take our chair way back. And for some reason, while I was waiting on my brothers for their haircut, I would look at the ceiling in the house upside
Yeah.
down, and I was imagining, man, what if the house was upside down? And I would imagine, okay, the chandelier of the lights would be like a merry-go-round, like a carousel,
Right.
and it just starts going south like real fast. And I think where you are, like one technique, one exercise is wherever you are listening to this podcast. If you're driving, probably don't do it, but imagine the room that you're in, or just notice where you are and look at the ceiling. And what if it was flipped, right? And the desks and the chairs all stuck to the ceiling, you know?
Hmm.
Um, it takes you there. So it's like a prompt. So that's one prompt that I use. Another one is, okay, let's pick a color, maybe the color red. I'm gonna look for everything that is red on my way from the the house to the town while driving. I'm just noticing these things, or if I'm being driven.
Hmm.
And little things like that, even in your room sitting, if you don't have to go anywhere, okay, everything that is made of wood, let's go. And it's a way of just training your mind to focus on the things that are subtle, the things that are the little nuances in life that
Hmm.
that we just miss because we're so busy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it sounds a
that's what.
little quirky, but these things are really, really helping me to slow down, especially with client work, and
Yeah.
take a step back. And I take a step back with, my clients, and I encourage them to, hey, how else can we think about this? And yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's powerful because I think the way that that just having prompts is, there's so many directions we can go that we just don't know what direction to go, and we feel like as
Hmm.
human beings, especially when we get to this adult world, we feel like we have to obey a set of rules, and so it's
Right,
like, all right, well,
right.
what rules do I have to follow to imagine? And so I love that you kind of guide people through that because I feel like at least it's it's a theory that when we can be more imaginative, when we can get into that world and let our minds free, we
Hmm.
can ease ourselves or rise above our anxieties a lot of time and realize that
Mm,
that's not the world we have to live in. Right?
yeah,
And you
yeah.
kind of guide your clients through that process. So in terms of what you do, I guess I'd like starting kind of back on that. Can you kind of give us some definitions of what it is as far as the world that you're working in, that you're a motion designer? What does that mean, and why is that different than say a visual storyteller or
Hmm.
a creative, or other creative in that way? What is the distinction there?
Yeah. So I think I need to define motion designer first because a lot of people, if you're not in the agency or entertainment world, you're not really familiar with it. It's still a relatively new field, in my opinion. And this is a perfect mashup between film, disciplines of film, graphic design, and animation. So it sits in the center of those three corners. So, just for example, when you're watching your evening news, is there's motion graphics all around. Everything that
Yeah.
moves, pretty much the text, logos, everything that moves that is not footage could pretty much be in a bucket of motion graphics. So visual storyteller, visual storytelling, on the other hand, is a much wider perspective where I'm not just approaching a project with the intent of using motion design. I'm using anything, like
Hmm.
any kind of medium, is like limitless to help the clients connect the dots between their message and being received by their audience. So that's the simple difference. And I would say, for the most part, these two disciplines have been used for, the studios, the usual suspects, commercials and to some extent user experience with apps. That's a whole
Hmm.
different field in itself in the tech world. But I have chosen along the way to right after school, along the way to getting experience in the field. In California, I was fortunate to work under some really good directors and motion designers. I decided, this is not very fulfilling for me. It wasn't
Hmm.
the craft itself, and I wasn't aware of this back then, right after school. But like say 4 or 5 years in, I realized instead of just doing motion design where it's typically used, what if I use motion design? Like what if I see it as a tool, right? To help other people besides the usual spaces. How can I bridge the gap for them? And maybe I can shine even more in that world. That was what I was thinking. So I
Yeah.
tried it, I got opportunity to work with some, and I volunteered, hey, you're an author? Let me help you pull some quotes out of that book and bring it to life. And it started there, and that evolved into the career that I have right now, where I'm helping keynote speakers visualize their frameworks, their customer journeys, instead of just being text and words or clip art. How can we tell stories with what you're trying to say? So there's a method that I created for this. But yeah,
That's great. So, can you provide an example of how you might help somebody like an author or a speaker, somebody
mm,
who's in that world to make a framework come alive? What is your
right.
process there?
Yeah, yeah. So the method is called frame, and it just evolved to that. I basically took my best experiences with clients for the last 10, 15 years, and I reverse engineered, okay, what were the secret ingredients, that made this work. And it's called FRAME. Is an acronym. It stands for F is for feelings, R is for relatable concept, A is for aesthetics, M is for message, and the E is for expression, right?
Hmm.
And I could dive a little bit into those right now. So I'll take a case study, a recent client, a current client, I'm sorry. She is a doctor and she is really established in her career, but she's wanting to do more speaking. She has a book on the way. She has a course in development. So she's essentially trying to build her personal brand, right? And you know
Right.
what that's like. there's
Oh
there's
yeah.
a lot of there's a lot of work into that. And her signature framework, she had a little trouble visualizing it, right? This was the main thing she wanted help with. Hey, Phil, how can you help me here? This is what I'm trying to say. So we took that step back, permission to
Hmm.
dream and imagine, and said, let's frame this the right way. So essentially, this frame acronym became a way to see ideas. You frame your ideas with this. I mean, you frame the things that matter to you in life, like the pictures in your office, right? You take careful note to what you choose to frame, and you put it on display. So I'm just doing that with the ID, her ID. So we took the customer journey map, which was her signature framework, and for each point we kind of distill all the copy down to some short sentences, right? What's the essence of it? And from there, we said, okay, let's run this through frame. Let's ask the 5 questions. What are the feelings you want your audience, your members, right? Your students in your course. What are the feelings you want to evoke here?
Mm.
For her, it happens to be females who want to take control of their health, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this sense of ownership, and she mentioned the word adventure, and she kind of mentioned it really quickly, but I stopped her saying, okay, let's dive a little deeper into that. And we went through the framework. Okay, so let's find a relatable concept. Okay, what if these clients of yours, these students are on an adventure with their health? Okay, adventure. Okay, let's think of there's a hike, something challenging, a trail. So we landed on a trail in a park. They're walking through a trail, and they're noticing and discovering different parts of our framework. This might make sense visually, but since you're listening to this podcast,
Right.
um, I'll keep going. Hopefully, people can imagine what I'm saying. All right, so at A is the aesthetic. What should this look like? And if you're design savvy, you can pretty much, make yourself familiar with any design template, and go from there. That way, the look is consistent, and it meets you at every point. You have consistent fonts and colors. If you're
Mm-hmm.
not a designer, you may want to what I advise my clients to do is just collect images, inspirational images you put in a folder so you can pass that on to a designer. I think you would have saved them a lot of work, and you would have communicated clearly, okay, this is the general feel and look. Yeah, right. So
Yeah.
moving on, the M is for message. What is the one message? And the emphasis here is on one message because, I mean, if you look at any keynote presentation or any talk, if there's more than one point, forget it. You're not remembering anything, right? I mean,
Right. Right.
so when it comes to keynote slides, for example, it's best to have one main message for the whole thing, and even so on a micro level, have one message for each slide, sub message. So don't put
Mm-hmm.
too many ideas on one slide, essentially is what I'm saying. Okay, so her messages were clear. She got her big paragraph where she started down to a condensed sentence or two. And then let's see, so we are FRAM is message, and E is the last one, is for expression. This is I think the most forgotten one, where you're looking at, okay, so how else can I express this idea? How else can I express this piece of communication, this message? So she's thinking about merch, you know,
Mm-hmm.
some collateral, well, I call it merch, some t-shirts or some hoodies or something that she can give away to her students or her clients.
Right.
For her also, since she's talking about health, fridge magnets came up as a really good reminder, having her framework as a fridge magnet for her clients or her students, because the fridge is this place where you go to feed yourself, to snack. You wanna
Right.
it's like a tunnel into eating. So
Sure.
she resonated with that, and I said, you know what, this is helpful. The second day we spoke, she recited to me the framework, and I was like, man, I think we're onto something here. Even if she thinks she's not creative, at least she has a tool that makes her feel creative and gets her
Yeah.
thinking creatively, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's such a huge power in frameworks. I mean, and I love the idea that and especially with people like, people who are listening to this show who might be dealing with fear, or leaders who are struggling with, like, just identifying what that fear is. Frameworks are so powerful
Yeah.
in
Oh, for
that, like,
sure.
whether it be a 12-step program or a 6-step this or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So actually putting it into those simple terms is
Hmm.
so puts people at ease. And that's why I love that, the idea that you're bringing out people's, you're not just doing it for them, you're bringing out their imagination and you're putting their
Oh,
message
yes.
forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. We made
Yeah.
it available too, is available for download once you go to the website.
Hmm.
So anyone can use it, for anything. Could be videos, talks,
Yeah.
any kind of experience, you could frame it.
And
Yeah.
so that's phillashley.com. But is this what are they downloading? What's it called?
Essentially a method, my methodology.
Okay.
Once you go to the website, in 2 seconds or so, it pops it, and you can just put in your information and get it for free.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a worksheet really, so you have spaces to fill in yourself and interact with it a little bit.
That's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's that could be a powerful tool for anyone to, work through that, work through a lot of those issues. So this frame method, and I love the idea it's called the frame method since it's, designing when you think of that kind of stuff, right?
yeah, yeah,
So
exactly.
how are people, are you finding that people are responding, leaders are responding differently? Why the choice to go for thought leaders
Hmm.
or that kind of clientele, and why'd
Yeah.
you make the jump from Hollywood to, I mean,
Hmm. Hmm.
by all intents and purposes, a lot of people might dream of that kind of
Yeah,
job, right? And you said maybe you didn't find it fulfilling. What was the
yeah.
the impetus to kind of move on?
Yeah. So there's two things to this. So there was what I was running from, what I
Yeah.
was running towards. What I was running from were the extra long hours. I mean, as a student, freshly out of school, it was fine. Got good experience. I don't discount or disregard that experience at all. I met some really really cool people,
Yeah.
but I couldn't see myself doing it long term, right? To this day, I still do freelance with tech companies on project basis.
Hmm.
But more importantly, what I was running towards was the what I considered a group of people that really impacted my life at a young age, and it is personal because if I take you back a little bit, while growing up in Barbados, I was actually in the IT field, a computer tech. If you can imagine, tie and laptop. I had, all the things that would make a corporate job comfortable, but
Yeah.
I basically was not enjoying it. And there was a season where it was pretty dark for me, going through
Hmm.
some personal stuff. And my dad gifted me this little book by John Maxwell. I didn't know who he was or anything, but it was this book of purely inspirational quotes, motivational quotes.
Hmm.
It's called The Keys to Success, I believe. And this book had very few words. It had a lot of illustrations, only to find out years after that it was John's first book with illustrations through his publisher.
Hmm.
And I would recite these things and just feed over, positive thinking. Um, let's just say I came a long way, Adam.
Yeah.
Came a very long way. So as an adult now, I look back and say, man, how can I give back to people like John who
Yeah.
they have good ideas, good messages, life-changing messages, really. But there's such a disconnect with the individuals. They're struggling, and I know how it goes with big publishing houses. In the case of a book, there's a lot of tears to go through, and you can't do what you want if you're relying on these publishers. But there was a need, and I saw this wide open space where I can help this group of people that really really impacted my life.
Yeah.
So that's where the root of it came from, and it's just cool looking back, and you can connect the dots now on hindsight. But I've always been drawn to help people who were speakers, for like full-time speakers, course creators. I got a lot of texts. Hey Phil, I'm about to give a talk next Saturday. Take a look at this visual. What do you think? Like throughout my whole life, that was a constant thing, and it's only within the last 2 years of this podcast recording that I really took a step back and noticed, well, there's something there. I feel like if these are my people, like this is really, really meaningful work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had clarity on where you were running toward, and obviously
Yes.
a lot of
Yeah.
pain from where you were running from. Can you kind of what timeline did that fall in as far as when you were in that suit and tie IT job? Was that
Yeah.
before or after you were in college, or was it
That
after?
was
Or?
before.
Oh,
Before.
before.
It
Okay.
was actually an internship during college that turned into shorts. Um, I think it was part time. It's a little
Yeah.
fuzzy right now, but I quickly got out of that into working with an IT company, but they were doing more creative stuff with touchscreen information and chaos machines. And through designing for those interfaces is where I got, I think I like this. This Photoshop thing is it's really cool.
Yeah. Chaos machine sounds frightening, by the way. Awesome, but also frightening. So,
Oh, chaos machine,
yeah.
information chaos. Yeah. I mean, we see them all around now at the airports, but it was pretty novel, say 15
Yeah.
years ago, 17 years ago.
Oh,
Yeah.
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 I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. Yeah, and one of the things I'm fascinated by too, with folks like you who have made the leap into their
Hmm.
passion, into something that did light them up. Not a lot of people make that leap. I mean, a lot of people will want it, will
Yes.
desire it, will dream
Yes.
of it, and they'll say like, I want to achieve that, and then they'll stay where they are because
Right.
it's the
Right.
comfort they know.
Yeah.
What do you think was the difference there that made you take the leap and not
Yeah.
stay put?
Yeah. Very good question. I think it may come from the acute awareness that time is short, life is short.
Mhm.
If I go back to the moments where I was thinking, oh, this semester is going to be my last for sure. I'm not sure how my dad is paying for this this
Yeah.
crazy expensive school. We felt alone. We felt a grant. So that mentality, okay, this what I have in front of me is short. Time is short. How can I make the best? Like, how can I squeeze every drop out of this orange? That's the mindset that I had, and I still do
Yeah.
have today. So when it comes to a career, I've left multiple full-time positions that were healthy too, but it everything served me for a season. Then I there was this restlessness of, man, but I don't think this is it, and I
Hmm.
don't want to waste my years, right? I think
Yeah.
it comes from that
Yeah.
perspective. Yeah.
That's that I hear that a lot as far as just kind of this and it's not a negative, but it's like this kind of reflection on our mortality of like, yeah,
Hmm.
life is short. We only have this one life to live, and that kind of
Yeah.
triggers
There's a
this. Yeah,
yeah, it's
one life.
reality.
Yeah. And so you found and so you made that leap. You've started getting clients. How's the business going for you? Is
Yeah.
it really filling that need, and are you feeling really good about it? Is it growing strong? All good things.
So I'll be honest, and my wife and I were talking about this over the weekend, where when people ask you how you're doing, the default answer, "Oh, I'm doing great. I'm doing fantastic." And I think we, well, maybe that's a separate conversation, but to answer
Sure.
your question, truthfully, this is a calculated, slow season where the building of the personal brand, the being on podcasts, the outreach, the nurturing the past clients. That's the season I'm in right now. The clients that we do have on the books, really fulfilling. And so I would say it is slower than normal. Any first quarter is typically like really slammed for me personally as a freelancer.
Hmm.
But I'm embracing this season to really invest inward. Like, I
Yeah.
have a website now. I have a portfolio. Like, for any designer, creative person, professional creative person, right, who is listening, we know too well we don't make time for ourselves. We don't write copy for our websites. We don't get testimonials. But for some reason,
Right.
I am doing that. I'm successfully getting these moments where I can invest back into myself so I can show up a lot better. So on a big high level view, I'm taking the few clients and going deeper with them. So
Hmm.
they're, instead of trying to get a lot of clients. So it's more of a long-term, more sustainable approach. Um, that's what I'm noticing. It is by no any means less terrifying, but that's what it is. I expected this, so that's where I'm at right
Sure.
now.
So
Yeah.
it's strategic, obviously, and I love the intentionality you're putting into it. That you want to go deeper with your clients. You're going to learn more, and it's just going to help
Yes,
you
have
take
been.
off.
Yeah.
Because yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I want to kind of dig into something that that's, maybe more of a challenging question, but I want to ask it
Sure.
because I know that from the perspective of someone who lives with anxiety, imagination can be a dark place too. Like,
Mm.
for some of us who fear, it's like, I know that some of our most, I guess our worst suffering happens in our imagination. Like,
Hmm.
we're imagining things that are way bad.
Yeah.
But imagination obviously can be a tool for good. Like any tool, it can be used for good
Hmm.
or bad.
Or,
How do
yeah.
we,
Yeah.
do you any tips on how we can make that shift into something that we're using it as more of an empowerment tool rather than something
Mm.
that's constantly kind of moving against us?
Mm. Yeah. This is a really deep one because I think you are like the sum of your experiences, your history, your past.
Yeah.
So I would say depending on where you are, if you having dark thoughts, um, seeing a therapist, I think would be a good first step. Like there's no point on trying to do it on your own. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't have any like checklist for you to say, hey, on your own, you're struggling with mostly dark thoughts. Oh, these thoughts, this is a recipe. No, I don't have that for you. To be honest,
Sure.
I see a therapist too, and my wife and I, we made it kind of routine, even for our marriage, like these check-ins, like how we check in, our car, our vehicle, we get an oil change. During the pandemic, we decided, you know what, let's do this because a lot of couples around us they're not like making it. So
Hmm.
I guess preventative um, mindset, getting the help you need, like talking to someone, overcoming that fear
Yeah.
of doing it by yourself, and get the necessary help. That would be the answer, I think.
I think, yeah, that's I love that answer. I mean, there's so much power in community and therapy, especially to get the healing you need before you can't just flip a switch
Yeah,
from darkness to light. Yeah,
yeah,
it's a lot of
yeah.
work. It's a lot of
And
work. Yeah.
even if you have a good day or week, the unresolved issues are still there, and you're
Yeah.
battling not like physical people, but it's your mind. Is
Hmm.
in you. So clear the stage, get a good platform, talk to someone, get through some hard stuff, and make way for more healthy thoughts that even say, all right, I'm gonna just practice visualization or imagination as a routine, and I think it's a good platform to start.
Yeah. Yeah. That's huge advice, and I think it's great that you recognized too the proactivity of something like therapy or getting the check-ins, like you were saying, like you said, like,
Yeah,
well, you notice that other couples might not be making it. So even though you and your wife might have been okay, it's like, okay,
yeah,
well,
yeah,
let's do this just to be
yeah.
prepared. Have you found that there's been tremendous value in that
Oh yeah, yeah.
or
I would
yeah,
say we were
good.
okay-ish. We were
Yeah.
going through some stuff, but before it got escalated, just some differences in mindset and stuff. It was really, really helpful, and we were in a better place like 2 months in of the sessions. So it was. We recommend it to all of our friends too. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. And you guys are traveling the world now, so you guys are doing a lot of like different places in the world. I'd be like, every time I've talked to you,
Yes,
you're
yes.
in a different place in the world. So
Yeah, we
is
we're
that
we're we're doing a digital nomad. It was a year. It's going into our second year now. Um, yeah, this is probably the number one question I get. Like, where are you?
yeah.
Um, let's say right after, I think in 2021, the beginning of 2022, we decided to, instead of throwing money at rent or trying to buy our first home in Florida,
Mhm.
um, the market was just crazy. And maybe, hopefully, at the time of hearing this podcast, the market is really in a good place now. But we decided, what if we just do the thing we always wanted to do, the dream that we had
Mhm.
on our dream board, our vision board for years. Let's travel. Let's travel and live different places and build our business. So we tried little by little. We did different states first. Stayed by some friends, family. 2 weeks here, 4 weeks here. and we came back to our home base in Florida. And we said, you know what? Let's try further. Let's go Canada. So we did Toronto. And we
That's
came back
awesome.
and said, okay. And the clients didn't miss me, they didn't ask where it was or anything. We didn't miss a beat with the time zones and such. So we put our stuff in storage, a small unit, and we headed to Tulum, Mexico. And that started the bigger adventure where we did Central
Mhm.
America, Costa Rica, Guatemala, a couple of regions in Mexico, in the mountain villages, a little bit of the Caribbean, Jamaica, St. Croix, Barbados. So um, we're gonna keep going until it makes sense to make the next step.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. Yeah, that's kind of living a lot of people's dreams. It's like if you find yourself in that point of freedom,
Yeah.
it's like, well, yeah, going and doing the things. And have you found that I mean, I know a lot of people have a barrier to entry on that
Hmm.
travel of like
Hmm.
saying, well, I just don't have the time or I'm working
Yeah.
or and naturally, of course, yeah, having a physical job that prevents that,
Right.
but
An
otherwise
in-person job.
financially, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
otherwise financially might be a challenge to that. Have you seen
Hmm.
any challenges in that way or just,
Yeah.
been able to make that work?
Well, financially is actually less expensive.
Yeah.
So that's a big excuse gone.
Yeah.
Basically, the sweet spot was staying 4 weeks, at least 4 weeks at any one Airbnb.
Hmm.
And the longer you stay, you can actually, I'm not sure I'm supposed to say this, you can actually negotiate the rates now.
Yeah.
It would be a win-win. So we found a little cheat there. And the other things you said, just being really aware and sensitive to the time zones, I think that was the biggest challenge. If you have the opportunity to work remotely, I think you're halfway there. Have that conversation with your employer. Hey, maybe a month, try 4 weeks, see how it goes, little by
Hmm.
little. And it could become a more longer thing. So
Yeah.
even if the whole dream of totally detached, you have a home or apartment, but you want to travel, you can do it little by little,
Yeah.
for sure,
Yeah.
for sure.
Do you find that there's any specific challenges that you run into that you weren't expecting in that or what?
Well, the language barrier for one.
Sure.
I
Language
don't speak
barriers.
fluent Spanish as yet. Neither
Hmm.
does my wife, although she might want you to believe that. But um, we had certain situations where it was like, oh my gosh, we definitely in trouble now. Like sometimes we get stopped by police, just random searches because there's a lot of trafficking between in Central America in particular,
Hmm.
and not being able to speak the fluent language basically is a disadvantage. But
Yeah.
even so, we use the Google Translate app on our phone. There's similar apps that really, really came a long way. You can bridge that gap. Um, I would say the biggest challenge though was just the stability of the environment
Hmm.
because you can't always predict what an actual Airbnb or house, is going to be like, the noise
Sure.
levels, the neighbors, until you actually get there.
Yeah.
So that's the part you got to be really, really strict in your criteria when you're searching. You
Yeah.
chat with the owners and you make sure it's conducive for working.
Sure. Yeah. 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 I can imagine. Yeah. Wi-Fi and all that kind of stuff can be a problem too.
Wi-Fi, major, major deal. Like that's a deal breaker.
Yeah.
They tell us
Yeah.
the actual speed. We need to know the speed. If you can't
Yeah.
tell us the speed, sorry, next.
Right.
Non-negotiable.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's been really awesome to see every time I talk to you, see you in a different place and just get to know you over these last couple of years. It's been pretty
Yeah.
amazing. And
Likewise, man. Likewise.
yeah, yeah, when if there's one like secret sauce that you would offer
Hmm.
to your clients, like what
Yeah.
would you say that is? What is the one thing, the message?
The one thing. That's a great one. I would say because people are busy and tired of social media, there's a lot of noise, right? There's a lot of distraction. I would say with your messaging and with your communication, don't focus on attention. don't focus on getting people's attention anymore. I think instead of focusing on attention, you focus on being unforgettable. And that is what the framework that I mentioned earlier is all geared to, like wrapping story into. It's like a deeper, it's going deeper into what you want to say, what you want to communicate, the experience you want to give, and connecting with on a deeper level. So a week from now, a month from now, people still remember what you said. They remember how they felt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a powerful, that's even an episode title right there. Focus on being unforgettable, rather than focus on getting attention. I love it. And so people can find you at phillashley.com, and where you can download, free toolkits from you.
The frame method. Yep.
Awesome. And and where else can people find you? What's next for you? Where can people find you on social or anything like that?
Yeah, on Instagram it's just my name, Phil Lashley, Lashley, and I am on LinkedIn as well. And those two are my main ones. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it's been such a thrill having you here. I'm so grateful that you shared this. You're doing amazing work and helping bring out creativity in thought leaders and in our world, which in turn is adding value to the world. It's so neat to see how your story has come full circle, where you read, the frameworks of people like John Maxwell, and then you're starting to help thought leaders create that and become a thought leader yourself. You have a powerful message, Phil. I'm grateful for it, Phil. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This was a pleasure.
My pleasure. Thanks. And thanks to everyone else out there for listening. We will see you next time. Hey, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Flow Over Fear podcast. If you'd like to learn more about getting into flow and learn the foundations of flow, I have a free video series on my website at www.adamcliffordhill.com called The Foundations of Flow. Feel free to go there and download it and start your journey to rising above fear and achieving greater flow in your life. And if you like this episode, and I'm guessing you did if you stuck around for this long, then please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button, and you will receive notifications when I have new interviews, new recaps, and new trainings that pop up on YouTube. Thanks again for joining us.